Hello, this is Mike Fardy with the Nicola Independent Film Festival. We're celebrating our 25th year this year, and as part of that celebration, we are chatting with filmmakers from Nicola's past, present, and hopefully future. Today I'm chatting with Nicola Hawkins, who is the director of Baa Shangri. Absolutely delightful title and a delightful film as well. Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
It's my pleasure, Mike, and
So,
pleasure to be back at the festival too. That's very exciting for me.
yeah, we're happy to have you back. So this isn't your first film, or not even the first film that has shown with us. How did you make your way into filmmaking? I know you were also a choreographer and a visual artist. What was it that sort of spurred your movement into film?
It's a very tedious answer, but the pandemic really. I was hired to stage a music performance with some visual art, and because of the theaters being shut down, it became a film. Seemed like the nearest option or the most sensible option. And when I realized I could make film from living in a rural place, which I'd never really thought of those two things going together, it was very exciting to me. So that was the beginning.
Yeah,
And
it was.
actually, as in having a dance company, we did do a couple of films, but I just did the choreography. But it was always interesting to me.
A lot of your previous films have been very like movement and music centric. Um, what is it about uh, movement and music that you find inspiring in terms of moving into film?
Um, well, when the big difference is, as a choreographer, you're working with live movement. So that's also very exciting. But in film, you can manipulate it through the edit in ways that you simply cannot do on stage. So that was really thrilling for me to discover. It seems an obvious thing now, but at the time, it seems like editing is choreography in a way. It's telling a story and chopping things up and moving them into different places.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard those two things compared. How do you find that those two things are kind of similar, like when it comes to editing and choreography?
Well, as a choreographer, you're working in a studio to create a work on live bodies, and you might come in with some material and teach it to the dancers, and then decide that you only like one section of it and get rid of the rest, or you might ask them to improvise, and through improvisation there are some elements that you like. And so as a choreographer, then you have your collection of ingredients of movements, and you put them together into a live piece. I mean, that's not the only way, but that was my way. So just like in editing, the you have the cut floor that is full of stuff that nobody sees,
Hmm.
and you. I was always not always a very obvious story, but into storytelling in my choreography. And so, as you know, in film, there's so many ways to tell a story. Um, each editor would make a different story out of the same footage, possibly.
Yeah, I mean I think a common saying is you have the film that you write, the film that you shoot, and then the film that you edit,
Right.
or like they're three of their own things. So is there any piece of art, whether it's a film or a movement piece that has like especially inspired you in your artistic career?
Well, as far as film, I think what has really influenced me was a film called Leviathan by the anthropologist slash filmmaker. His name is Lucien Castang Taylor, and he made that with Paravel. What's her first name? I forget right now, but it's called Leviathan. There are several films called Leviathan, but this is a very experimental documentary on about a fishing trawler, and it's quite abstract in places and riveting and very textural. So that was a huge. I think that was 2012 that film came out.
Oh, that sounds, yeah, I haven't actually seen that myself.
Because there's the movement of the ocean, the movement of the boat, the movement of the fish on the boat, and the movement of the fishes gutting, and it's very compelling. And there's some underwater stuff too, so you should see it, Mike.
Yes, I'll have to put that on my list now. That's great.
I can
Um,
send you the real information,
oh,
the
perfect.
names. Yeah,
Maybe we can include that below for some for anyone else who's interested.
yeah.
So talking about Baa Shangri, how did this film come about? Where did the idea come from?
Well, the impetus to make it came from having just shot a film with a small crew, and that was probably my first film that was with a crew. And I decided that I needed to know a lot more about filmmaking. So this is a one-woman show, really. It's a no-budget film that I made in my free time. And I wanted to learn more by actually trying to do everything, the different roles in filmmaking. And then the content, the ba is the sheep that are taken out to a small island off Ferryland, and this is quite close to my home, and it's something that I really love watching every summer. The sheep are put on boats, and small boats, and taken to the island at the beginning of the summer, and in the fall they come back, usually in larger numbers, because sometimes they give birth in the summer on the island, and the young ones fare quite well without any human intervention. So that was close by to me. So that was an attraction, not to have to travel to make a film. And it's, again, a film full of movement.
So you've made films on your own. You started making films on your own as well, right? And then you moved into working with a crew, and now you're sort of back to.
Yeah.
What do you
Well,
find are the big differences between, making something completely on your own versus working with a crew? What are sort of what has your experience been like with that?
well, on my own, a big part of me in my is being self-sufficient, and I love to be alone and working with what I've got. So the camera I've got, what's going on in my community, and that seems the attraction in that is something to do with intimacy with the subject and the camera, and no pressure at all. And it's explorative. And with a crew, it's a much longer process in that it's the story has to be written and conceived of. And usually, or many times, I start with the music. So the story sort of evolves out of the music. And I like to use a full piece of music. The music can't be edited. That's my own rule that I set up. also because I use local musicians and I really respect their work and I don't want to chop it up. It's wonderful having a cinematographer who knows what they're doing and doesn't have to shoot the same thing 100 times to get the shot. And it's wonderful that someone has, strong sense of lighting and, professional people is fantastic. And semi-professional. It's not that they're professional, but more talent in the mix, of course, is always better, whether they're professional or not. And the prep is so different. With a crew, you really, I of course have to be super organized and have a lot of backup plans if the shot isn't, if I can't get the shot or it's not working out. And it's fun to collaborate and brainstorm how to tell the story. Whereas on my own, I'm just going with my gut instinct, really.
I'm really interested in hearing more about you shooting on your own and sort of how the process for shooting on your own went for this film. I feel like I don't want to tell on myself too hard, but I think there are certain people who find that it's really difficult to finish projects without the pressure. And so do you have any like strategies? You mentioned that there's a lot more prep that goes into working with a crew. What do you tend to do to keep yourself on track and get your film created when you're just working on your own?
Okay, well, it's very useful that the sheep only go out to the island once a year and return once a year. So I did it one summer, one fall, and then I felt like I hadn't got some shots that I really wanted, and I went back the next summer. I don't find being motivated difficult at all. So getting the project, but I do like to take time with my projects. And that's a real luxury when working on your own, you can do that, especially if you don't have a budget because there are no final reports. And I don't know whether it would be so easy if I took a subject that I had to travel to and set up interviews. And these sheep were very amenable and easy to work with. It's funny though, Mike, the initial idea was I've sort of set my goal to make a few short films by myself about physical work in Newfoundland. And that's what I thought this was going to be about, the people who were actually moving, person handling the sheep and their physical movement. But it really turned into being more about the sheep. I mean, both of them, but
And was that something you kind of discovered while you were shooting, or did you find that more in the editing?
yeah, I realized that there's only so much watching of throwing sheep into a boat that is like, it's very exciting the first couple of times, but like the 80th time, it's not so exciting, except for me, maybe. And the line of the sheep are closed in a little boat, and then they go into a line walking up the hill, and then they spread out, and this sort of river of sheep. I hadn't anticipated that because I'd never been on the island to see this happen. So it was sort of a discovery that the sheep had this very beautiful ribbon-like movement along with their own individual expressions and characters.
I feel like there's something there with giving yourself some space to surprise yourself with what you're making. I think sometimes when you prep, and maybe if you feel too close to your project, but you mentioned it with a crew as well, like having that time to have a backup plan or to let some stuff go. Do you find that's a common thread in your projects?
That I like having. Sorry, I didn't quite
Sorry.
understand.
Yeah, I guess. Do you plan in these? Do you sort of plan to have these moments of surprise within? Like, do you give yourself that flexibility in
Oh
all of your
yeah, when I'm
projects?
on my own, and I like it too in the shoot. I like the shoot to be fun and a little bit loose in that if something comes up that we do take the time. But yeah, on my own, I feel like that's what it's all about is being aware in the moment of what is going to happen or what has happened. Yeah, like with a big, I couldn't have done this with a crew because when they load the sheep into the boat, I didn't have another boat that I could ride alongside and shoot from. So I was down with the sheep in the boat, and there's lots of water in the bottom of the boat, or 6 inches of water, and it's thick soup of sheep shit. And I'm holding my camera up, but I'm sitting in that because you got to get the shot right. Those eyelashes on the sheep. So things like that it's so fun to be, you can get in places that it was just a small sort of camcorder camera. You can climb on rocks and be a bit more risky than you could with a big crew. Yeah, I'm willing to take physical risks myself, but I'm not really, I wouldn't expect that of anyone else. So that's really fun. The surprise is that, okay, if I suddenly lie on my back and a sheep jumps over me, don't expect that to happen in the film. It's not there, but that's an example that I could do that if I wanted.
Well, yeah, that's great. I feel like there's it translates really well in the film, that sort of discovery, and the movement is an interesting lens that I think I've learned from you to watch movement on screen more. Do you have any I don't know, any advice for filmmakers who are interested in ways to find movement or to work movement into their scripts?
Um, well, sometimes we think of, oh, it would be great to have the person do perhaps this movement, but often, this is just something I've discovered for my that I do. I tend to I'll plan, I'll think, oh, I want the sheep jumping out of the boat, or that's what I want to capture. But then often just before or just after is sometimes even more interesting. So instead of the peak of the movement, the anticipation of the sheep getting, crunching down so that it can then leap, or the landing and the shaking of the sheep in satisfaction. I mean, that's a simple, that with movement, it's not always the most dramatic movement or the peak of, say, a jump. It's not the height that is necessarily interesting, because you can't get, if someone, say an athlete's jumping, you might not be able to get the ground in, so it's just a jump. It could be 3 inches off the floor, so maybe the feet is actually more interesting before the jump. It's I'm just learning, so that might seem so obvious, but
I mean, not to me. That's really great. I think it's yeah, it's nice to think about where you can point the camera and looking on either side of the moment that you're looking to capture to try to find something else
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, I think a lot when we shoot that sometimes the recovery out of the shot you've got. I like to keep the camera running just a little bit longer because when the actor or the sheep in this case comes out of what you thought was spectacular, there's something in that moment of it's not performative. Well, none of it's performative with the sheep, or maybe they were showing off intentionally. I don't know. But yeah, I guess I'm repeating myself here.
No, yeah, but that is an interesting idea. I think that's something that talking about performative, like when you're working with an actor, finding that maybe there's something a little more raw or emotional on the beginning and the
Yeah,
end. Yeah.
it's the cusp between the script and the construct of the story, and then the coming out into their own reality. That is, I think it makes acting very rich when we see the real actor behind the script sometimes.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Nicola. I hope that people are excited to come and see this film. If you're looking to come see Baa Shangri, it is playing on June 19th. That's a Thursday at 6:30 p.m. at the LSPU Hall. Thanks so much for coming and chatting with us.
Thank you, Mike. It's always great to talk to you. You make it so fun and easy.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Well, we'll chat again after the screening, I hope.
Okay, good. See you then.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Okay.